In this video, it begins, okay? We're going to start to see how verbs change shape to give us tense, voice, mood, person, and number. Now, the key to this is on pages 4 and 5 of the master chart. This is a work of art. Actually, of all the master chart, I am most proud of this. If you understand this chart and how these verbs grow from the root to the stems and multiply out into their various forms, you get the Greek verbal system. And I think you'll see this is doable. The patterns are there, and I've tried very hard to show you how those patterns manifest themselves in various ways. Now, today we start with the personal endings. So if you look up in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see the personal endings. These are very important because you'll see they give you a lot of information. The first thing they tell you is the person and number. But they also will tell you the voice, and they'll tell you some things about the tense. So these personal endings are your friend. And in fact, you need to have them down cold. Remember how earlier I said, boy, you got to know that noun endings chart. If you could just learn that noun endings chart, man, you're halfway home, because that's like the key that unlocks so many mysteries. In the same way, this personal endings chart will unlock just all kinds of mysteries for you when it comes to verbs. So you should have it down like this. O ace a amen eta usi. Amai a etai amatha estha antai. On sn amen eta on. Amen u eta amatha estha anta. So I know, sounds like gibberish right now, but those endings, as you will see, are your friends because they will give you so much information. Let me show you how that works.
Oh, what a gorgeous chart. You guys, I promise you, you will be saying that. You will be saying that before the semester is over. Right now, it looks, I know, pretty overwhelming, but this is a chart which shows you all the patterns by which Greek makes verbs. All right, but we must walk before we run, grasshopper. So we start very simply today by simply attaching personal endings onto a verb. Now the verb we will use is luo. Luo right here means I loose. Why luo? It's sort of a strange verb, loose. It's not even that common in the New Testament. Any guesses? Because it's short. It's very short. Lu, just 2 letters. So it makes a good paradigmatic verb, so we can tack our endings onto this verb very easily. We don't have to type out a big, long Greek word. Also, luo is a very regular word, so it's a great one to practice on. So luo, we'll see later why this is significant, but it's built on the present tense stem. This is how you'll look it up in the lexicon later. It will be listed as luo. But let's attach some personal endings. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take this chart right here, the personal endings chart, and we will attach these endings onto luo. And you can see we'll make some present tense verbs, and we will make some imperfect tense verbs. So here it is, our first verb, luo. Luo means I loose, okay? But now why? Remember, the stem of this verb is lu. And so when we attach this omega onto the end, it becomes I loose. Okay, now why I loose? I want you to notice some things about this omega. First of all, it's first person singular, which means it's I. The second thing I want you to notice is that it's active, which means that the I is doing the action. I loose. Not I am loosed, which would be passive, but I loose. So it's active. It's also primary. Generally speaking, when you're in this top part of this chart right here, in the primary endings, you're in the present time. When you go to the secondary endings down here, it will be past time. So this is I loose, not I loosed in the past time, or I was loosed down here. It's I loose, active. So this is a primary active ending, and it's first person singular, so luo means I loose. Now watch this tricky stuff right here. When you shift the ending from o, omega here, to amai, it becomes middle passive, okay? It's middle or passive, okay? One or the other. We'll just talk about the passive since the middle translation is actually very rare. So let's just talk about passive. And remember, if something's passive, it receives the action. So rather than I loose, it would mean I am loosed. See, it's happening to the I here. Still first person singular, still in the present, so it's I am loosed. Now let's go past time and tack on a secondary ending, on. Now notice when we do this, we move into a different tense. We go from a present tense to the imperfect tense. The imperfect tense is ongoing action in the past time. So we'll translate it, I was loosing. It's ongoing in the past, okay? But there's our ending. Lu on means I was loosing. Not I loose, but I was loosing. Now notice here that we also have an epsilon on the front. What's that? Well, that's called an augment. And the Greeks, when they went into past time, they always augmented the front of the word. If the vowel stem started with a consonant, the augment is always an epsilon. So lu becomes elu. And then the on tells you that we're imperfect here. Elu on. Elu on means I was loosing. And then if I want to make this past time passive voice, I use the ending amen. Again, because it's past, we have the augment. And then because it's passive, we have this amen ending. Elu amen. I was being loosed. Here is a summary of everything so far. Now notice I'm taking first person singular endings out of all four quadrants. The primary means that we're in present time. Secondary endings mean we're in past time. Active endings mean that the subject is doing the action of the verb. And in the middle passive endings, the subject is receiving the action of the verb. So we've talked on o, amai, on, and amen. So luo meant I loose. I do it, present time. Luamai meant I am loosed. It's happening to me, present time. Eluon means I was loosing. We translate it ongoing because the imperfect tense is always ongoing action. So eluon means I was loosing. I'm doing it in the past time. Elu amen means I was being loosed. It's happening to me, ongoing past time. Now the confusing thing about this is English, not Greek. Please notice how in English the verb doesn't change much. Well, it does. It can become ed or ing. Strange things happen to the verb. But also we have all of these helping words that have to be added. Notice how elegantly Greek does all of this. Our problem, and you'll get tired of me saying this, but it's true. Our problem is very rarely Greek. Our problem is English. Look at the primary active endings. O, ace, a, amen, ete, usi. Say it with me. O, ace, a, amen, ete, usi. You can almost make a little cheer out of it here. O, ace, a, amen, ete, usi. Need to really have that down. But not just have it down, but understand what it means. Now look what happens here. If I say luo, it means I loose. Primary active ending. I'm doing the loosing in present time. If I say lues, it means you loose. Can you see why? It's a second person singular ending, ace. Primary active, second person singular. So o, ace, and now a. Lue means he, she, or it looses. Notice this oddity that we've seen before, that in the third person singular, English has gender. Nowhere else. But so lue means he, she, or it looses. Luamen means that we loose. Luete means you all loose. Okay, you loose, plural. No good grammar in English to say plural form of you. And then luusi means they loose. Third person plural, they, right? So luusi means they loose. This little nu on the end is called a movable nu, and it's used depending on whether the next word starts with a consonant or not. So it may or may not be there. So usi or usin, either way. Luo, lues, lue, luamen, lueta, luusin. Notice how we get all this information just with these endings. Also, look at English. Notice that the word loose doesn't change, except notice in the singular, a third person singular it does, which is just an oddity of English. But for the most part, you can't see the person and number in the verb itself in English, right? You have to use pronouns. I, you, he, she, it, we, you, they. You have to use these pronouns in English. Otherwise, you wouldn't know the person and number. In Greek, you don't need the pronoun because the person and number is embedded in these personal endings. Pretty slick, eh? Look with me now at the primary middle passive endings. Amai, a, atai, amatha, estha, antai. Say them with me. Amai, a, atai, amatha, estha, antai. And again, do it like a cheer. Amai, a, atai, amatha, estha, antai. Or a chant, or whatever you prefer. But notice what happens now when we put these on the end of this verb stem lu. Lu amai means I am loosed, right? It's happening to me in the present time. So it's passive, but it's also present time. Lu amai. Lu a, now it's happening to you. You are loosed. Lu a. Lu atai means he, she, or it is loosed. Lu amatha means we are loosed, because it's first person plural, right? Lu estha means you all are loosed, you plural. And lu antai means they are loosed. Lu amai, lue, luetai, lu amatha, lu estha, lu antai. The secondary active endings are on, s, n, amen, eta, on. Say them with me now. On, s, n, amen, eta, on. Now, again, we have the movable nu here, but notice then when we tack them on to the verb, we have eluon, I was loosing. I'm doing it. In the past, it's ongoing action since we're imperfect tense here. I was loosing. Elues means you were doing it. We tack the s ending. Notice the similarities. Ace becomes s, so get used to that sigma meaning like second person singular. So now you are the subject. Elus. If I said eluin, it would mean he, she, or it is loosing. If I said eluamen, it would mean we were loosing. Notice that these are the same, amen and eta. So how will you know? Well, that's where we need this augment, don't we? So, eluamen, elueta means y'all were loosing, and eluon means they were loosing. And notice all we're doing here is changing the person and number by changing these sets of endings right here. And in our lower right-hand quadrant, we have amen, u, eta, amatha, estha, anta. Now, when we use these endings, it means we're in the past time, secondary endings, and that we're in the passive voice. Amen, u, eta, amatha, estha, anta. So let's tack them on to the verbs here. Notice we augment because we're in past time. So elu amen means I was being loosed. Past time, it's happening to me. I was being loosed. Elu makes it second person singular, so now it's you who are being loosed. Elueta, he, she, or it was being loosed. Elu amatha, we were being loosed. Eluestha, you all were being loosed. And elu anta, they were being loosed. Notice all we're doing is changing the person and number by changing these endings around. So here it is.
Wow.
Spend some good time just looking at this chart. As I've said, there's probably nothing you can do to help you along with your Greek verbals than to really get this chart down. Let's just say it again. O ace a, amen eta usi. One more time. O ace a, amen eta usi. One more time. O ace a, amen eta usi. The middle passives. Amai e atai, amatha estha antai. Amai e atai, amatha estha antai. Amai e atai, amatha estha antai. All right, the secondaries. On, S-N, amen eta on. On, S-N, amen eta on. On, S-N, amen eta on. Oh, you're going to have nightmares about that, aren't you? But hey, that's good nightmares. How about the secondary middle passives here? Amen u ata, amatha estha anta. Amen u ata, amatha estha anta. Amen u ata, amatha estha anta. Seem a little repetitive what I'm doing here? Yeah, it is. That's what you really need to do. But don't just learn the endings, understand what they are doing. Realize that when you use, for example, primary active endings, they change form to give you person and number. They also tell you about the time and whether they tell you that it's an active voice. The primary middle passives tell you present time with a middle passive voice. Secondary actives tell you past time, active voice. And then the secondary middle passives tell you past time, middle or passive voice. Very quickly now, so you don't get angry at me later, I want you to know that these endings will change their shapes a little bit depending on the tenses and various things that happen to verbs. But the basic shapes are there, and so they're very important to see. Let's look at a few sentences now, and we'll start with the primary active endings. O, ace, a, amen, eta, usi. All right, well, let's tack those onto the verb lego. Lego means I speak or say. So, tein aletheon. Do you remember that word? Aletheia is truth. Aletheon, what case does that look like to you? That's accusative singular feminine, right? The truth, receiving the action of the verb. So how would we translate this sentence? Lego tein aletheon. I speak the truth. Or, I am speaking the truth. Remember that the present tense can be either undefined, I speak the truth, or it can be continuous, I am speaking the truth. Okay, what about this next one, where we just change this ending, legamen tein aletheon. Legamen is first person plural, so we'll change our subject here from I to we. We speak the truth, or we are speaking the truth. And just to round it out here, what ending is this? Eta. You, plural, y'all, you speak the truth, or y'all are speaking the truth. All right, well, let's attach some middle passive endings onto some verbs here. Let's remind ourselves of the middle passive endings. Amai, a, etai, amatha, estha, antai. All right, so what if I said legamai tein aletheon? That would be I would be the subject. I spoke the truth. That doesn't make sense in English. We have to change the word to like I was told the truth. And that's an example of how in translation, sometimes you have to be a little flexible. You have to sort of step back and say, what do they mean? And put it into English. So I was told the truth. What would this one be? Lege tein aletheon. Second person singular, so the subject is you were told the truth. Or how about here? Legantai. Antai is third person plural, so they were told the truth. Let's look at our secondary active endings here. Now, let's first just refamiliarize ourselves here. On, s, n, amen, etta, on. Those are our secondary active endings. Secondary means we're in past time. Active means it's active voice. The subject of the verb is doing the action. Now notice we get this second clue that we're going into past time, which is the what? Do you remember? The augment, which we tack onto the front of the word, front of the verb. It tells us that we're in past time. So, if I said elegon tein aletheon, any guesses how that would be translated? Well, look over here at our endings. We have on in the first person singular and in the third person plural. So context will have to tell you whether it's the subject is I or they. This could either be I was telling the truth or they were telling the truth. Either one. Now notice, because this is imperfect tense, it can only be continuous action. I was telling, not I told the truth, because that would just be undefined. I was telling the truth. It's an ongoing action in past time. Remember, Greek emphasizes aspect, kind of action, not just when it happened, but what kind of action was it? I was telling the truth. They were telling the truth. Or if we shift the person and number here to n, that should be fairly straightforward. The subject becomes in what? He, she, or it was telling the truth. And if I make it etta, then we would say, y'all were telling the truth. One last bit of fun here. Yay! And I've had a bunch of people tell me I have a strange idea of fun. But hey, I do think this is fun. Okay, our secondary middle passive endings. Okay, and let's remember, these are amen, u, eta, amatha, estha, anta. Remember secondary, so it's past time. Middle passive, and we'll go passive, so the action is happening to me. So we have to maybe think this through a little bit. So what does elegamein tein aletheon mean? The subject is I, so I was being told the truth. Okay, this is imperfect, so we'll translate it continuously, right? Being told, and it's passive, so it's happening to me. I'm told. I don't say it, I'm told it. Again, we have to shift the verb in English. But also, it's past time, so I was being told the truth. The problem is English, okay, not Greek. Elegamein tein aletheon. I was being told the truth. What would this one be then? Elegu tein aletheon. U. Well, there's our ending. That's second person singular, so it would mean you were being told the truth. And if we shift that ending to anta, we go to third person plural, so the subject would be they were being told the truth. All right, now I think you can see how the verb here, lego, gets kind of lost in the things that come before and the things that come after. And if you don't recognize the endings and the augments, then sometimes it's hard to see the verb itself. So that's part of why it's so important to be able to recognize these endings.
Do you see what a masterpiece these personal endings are? How with just these little verbal utterances at the end of words, we get so much information. These are incredibly important to learn. Now, I want a little truth in advertising here. I want you to be aware that these endings will change a little bit. The shapes will look slightly different depending on the tenses and other things that happen with the word. So don't be frustrated by that, but understand this is like the skeleton. You need to understand these four basic quadrants really well. The primary active personal endings are o, ace, a, amen, etta, usi. Okay. The primary middle passive endings are amai, a, atai, amatha, estha, antai. Are you saying those out loud? Are people looking? Are they wondering if you've lost your mind? It's okay. It's okay. Stick with me. Okay. The secondary active endings, repeat after me if you would. On, s, n, amen, eta, on. And then the secondary middle passive endings, amen, u, eta, amatha, estha, anta. Gibberish? No, not gibberish. Valuable clues, gold, things that you'll want to learn, commit to memory, and begin to see all over the place.